Two junk journals in two totally different styles, created simultaneously. Welcome to another episode of this series here on my YouTube channel, in which I want to show you that you can transfer any inspiration that you got from somewhere to your own junk journal or other paper craft project in your very own unique style. Today I want to talk about mixed media. I think that mixed media and junk journaling is a really hot topic. And perhaps you might think, ooh, mixed media, that is messy, that is difficult, I can't do that. So I want to show you the easiest mixed media technique in the entire universe today that you can include to your junk journal. Because I think that mixed media is something that everyone can do. Hi there, this is Luise Heinzel. Welcome to my channel Junk Journal Art. When I heard about mixed media for the first time, I was like, ooh, that sounds difficult. That sounds like you need some fancy mediums and materials. And to be honest, I was like, ooh, perhaps I don't want to do that in my junk journals. Perhaps it's too difficult, or perhaps it's also really expensive to buy things that you need for mixed media. But in the meantime, I thought about, what does mixed media mean? I mean, let's talk about the original, like really raw meaning of mixed media. Mixed media is nothing else than mixing different mediums and materials to create a project. And I think perhaps if you want to try out something new, or if you want to go a little bit messy with your junk journaling process, then you should think about this easiest definition of mixed media. I know that there are many professional mixed media artists out there. On YouTube, you can find a lot of professional tutorials, and I don't want to say anything bad about those people. I'm totally in awe with those people who can do mixed media really, really professional. But I want to take away this kind of afraid feeling that some of you might have when we talk about mixed media in combination with junk journaling. I read that very often in the comments below my videos, that you are wishing for easy mixed media techniques that everyone can do. And that is the sense of this video. I want to show you the easiest mixed media technique in this world. So let's start with what I have on my desk here today. On the right side, you can see, as always in this series, the grungy part of the project. And on the left side, you can see the clean part of this project. So this is going to become a clean journal, and this is going to become a grungy journal in the end of this series. I have prepared some scraps from my stash for today's idea. So what you can see here are just some different kinds of papers cut into rectangles. First, let's talk about the material that I have chosen here. Mixed media is nothing else than mixing different materials and mediums together to create a project. So as soon as you take different kinds of papers, I mean, this isn't glued together yet, but this is mixed media already. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I have cut those into rectangles because I thought that for the clean journal, this rectangle shape could be really good, but of course you can do that like you want it. On the grungy side here, I also have prepared some scraps, but as you can see, those are not like those regular rectangles. I've torn them. Ooh, what is that? A little thread. Ooh, it's going to become really, really mixed media. Let's talk about thread later. What I'm trying to say is I have not cut those scraps. I've torn them so that we get this irregular edge, but I would say these are like rectangles as well, but in a more grungy way. As you can see, I've chosen different kinds of papers here as well. This is mixed media, isn't it? And I think every journal that we create already is mixed media because we are using so many different materials, not only different kinds of papers, but also materials like lace or fabric, for example, sometimes wood. And for me, I mean, the list is not at its end. Yeah, you could do a really long list about those materials that we use in junk journals. And because of that, every junk journal, in my eyes, is mixed media. Yeah, perhaps it's another definition of mixed media than the social media platforms give us. But for me, every junk journal already is mixed media, even if you haven't used any like liquid mediums. But let's see. I want to show you something that I really enjoy to do in my journals. So I have my scraps for the clean journal on the left side here and the scraps for the grungy journal on the right side here. And I've already chosen some pages to work on today from both on the of the journals. So I want to start on the clean side here with this page, and on the grungy side with this tiny page here. But the size of the page doesn't really matter. Let's first talk about this one here. When you look at this, you can see we have already relatively much in the background here from the stenciling and the stamping that we've done here. This pocket is also relatively, like, you know, popping out, and we have relatively much plain space here. Now you could think, negative space is always good. I will put my mixed media thingy here. But please imagine, later on when the journal is put together and finished, you perhaps want to take a journaling card. I have taken out this one here, that the colors match is totally coincidence. But I think I will use this card for this journal. I mean, look at that. So that doesn't matter. You want to take this journaling card and you want to put that in here. There are two things that you can see here now. The first thing is that the background gets really a background. Yeah, it goes behind the card, of course, and you see not so much anymore of the stenciling and stamping here. And the second thing is more like a technical thing. You want to have a handy journal and you want to write in your journal, you want to be able to take your cards out and put them back in and so on. Now imagine you would put something here that has a texture later and you want to take a card and put that in here. You would always have to slide over that thing here, and that could hinder the card to go into the pocket smoothly. So even if we like to have negative space, I would suggest to put the mixed media stuff here or here or here and here. I have chosen this page for the grungy journal because this is relatively small, isn't it? I mean, here we have much space to do something, and here the space is a little bit limited. But let's see if we can do exactly the same thing on both of these pages. So, as I said, I want to use this space and perhaps a little bit of this space here as well, because an L shape is always great. And we have an L shape here from our tuck spot in the pocket as well. And we can, yeah, like bring that out a little bit more with this mixed media technique that I want to show you. So I'm first taking some of my scraps and I'm building up a little like collage. And that really doesn't matter how you do that. You can use any kind of paper that you have. You can use all of your scraps that you perhaps have from some other projects. I have taken the color palette that we have made in the very beginning for the journal, and I have taken that and I have held that next to my box of scraps to decide which of the papers match the color palette. And what I also have done, I have taken this apart, that I have done in the last video already, to be clear, but I had some things left over, and what you can see here is mainly what I had left over from making the pockets and tuck spots and so on. And that's of course good material to use now because, yeah, the colors match. Do you know what I mean? And now you want to choose a really good glue to glue this down. I'm using matte gel from Liquitex, and the good thing about that is, and that is the main reason why I'm using that, it's waterproof. So if you have a glue stick, for example, and you think, okay, let's glue that down with the glue stick, I can't recommend that because most of the glue sticks that are existing in this world, unfortunately, are not waterproof. And we want to go over this later with some wet mediums. So you have to make sure that you have a glue that is waterproof. Otherwise, your paper will warp, and also the scraps could fall off completely when you add the wet mediums later. So please have that in mind. And I also want to include some thread here to show you that you don't necessarily need a sewing machine to include thread into your junk journaling. So I'm just putting some of the gel medium on top of this, and you can also move the thread around a little bit with your paintbrush to get it there where you want to have it. Here on this page we have like a technical problem here because we have this opening here, and of course we don't want to glue anything over this, otherwise that would be closed. If that happens to you, don't freak out, it's no problem, but I want to use this here as a pocket, of course. So I think I want to put only a tiny little thing here. So let's look what we have here on the grungy side of the scraps. Oh, I think that's good. So let's glue this down here. It's not straight, but that doesn't matter. It's the grungy journal. And perhaps, can we use perhaps something of this wallpaper here as well? Let's see. It's too big. I like the color there, but it's too big. So let's perhaps do it like this. And let's here also take a little bit of thread to be able to compare that later. And as you can see, here I have not so many scraps like on the left side because, yeah, here it's way smaller. But you can see that you can also do the same thing even if your page is smaller. You just have to take smaller scraps. That sounds a little bit weird, but sometimes it's those easy things that we don't think about so much when we see something perhaps and we think, oh, I can't do that, my pages are too small or something. Yeah, just do the most obvious thing, take smaller scraps and your problem is solved. When this is completely dry, it looks like this. And I already like this really, really much. We have some texture here now from the thread and of course from the scraps as well. The same here. This looks really cute. I love that. But I want to show you some different possibilities and give you some inspiration with this video. Even if you could, of course, leave this exactly like it is. Yeah. Mixed media. easy. You could leave it. But I want to add something else here. And for that I'm using some really cheap white gesso. And I'm saying cheap because of two reasons. The one reason is you don't need fancy supplies. Yeah, you don't need those fancy mediums that are all around and available. And the second reason is this gesso is not so 100% opaque, meaning if you use this, and I've bought this at Action, perhaps you know that shop. It's a Dutch shop, but it's also, yeah, in other areas available in Europe. And I'm saying that because at Action, the things that you can buy there are really, really cheap. And that's the same with this here. Meaning you can also perhaps check out a dollar store or something like that, what you have available, and look if they have some art supplies, and perhaps you can find a cheap gesso as well. That doesn't have to be anything fancy. I want to apply that here somehow and somewhere and here as well. And for that you can use a spatula. Yes. So I'm taking my gesso, and as you can see, this spatula is really, really big, yeah. I was a little bit lazy today, to be honest. I have my smaller spatulas in a little pot with water to clean them, and I haven't done that before I started recording. Otherwise, I would use a smaller one, but you can use what you have. You can use this big one as well. Just hold it to the area where you want to put the gesso, and then eyeball how much gesso you can put to your spatula, and then just apply only a little bit here, and imagine the spatula is only this big. You know what I mean. Don't put the gesso to the whole surface here, otherwise you would smear half of the gesso to your table or to the other page. And now I'm just with relatively much speed, I'm just applying that here like this, and that's all. I'm feeling a little bit weird. I want to put something here as well for all of those out there who are already really deeply into this mixed media topic. This seems to be perhaps a little bit strange, but with this video I want to show you that you can create cool effects with the easiest supplies. Yeah, I don't want to make any fancy mixed media thing, but I want to show you that this can be a start for coming into mixed media. Yeah. So when we have that, we can see that we get a really interesting texture with this combination of the thread and the gesso. Really cool. And I also like this here on the bottom. What do you think about this for the clean journal? I mean, it is a tiny little bit messy, isn't it? But it makes it at the same time so much more artsy, I would say, even with this small amount of stuff here. Please think about that. So I will put that aside to dry. And what to do if we don't have a spatula, or if the area where we want to place the gesso is so small, like here. Alternatively to a spatula, you could also use some things that you definitely have at home. I hope my grandma will forgive me because this is from my grandma and I'm using this actually for eating. Yeah, so take out what you have. A spoon could work, a knife could work, everything could work. What you have, where you can put something on and make this. You could also use a paintbrush, yeah? But with a paintbrush, I don't like that so much. Because of that, I'm using this, just to show you that it's possible as well. So I will put a tiny amount of that here. Ooh, that was probably a little bit too much already. Let me quickly take a paper towel and just get rid of some of this. because I only want to have that here on the bottom and a little bit here on this side, and I think this is was already too much, but this looks better. So I will take that here and just and just do it like this. That is cool, isn't it? I mean, yay. Okay, so you could use a spoon. You could, and gesso is of course water soluble. You could just do it like this and it's clean again. I would wash this, of course, before I would use it for my next meal, but you know, you can get it totally clean again. Let's try something here with the knife, and I'm just thinking if we can perhaps go over here with a tiny little bit of the gesso here, but then we would have exactly the same problem that I've discussed before, that we later on perhaps can't get anything in here. But I want to try it. The knife has one good thing. I'm talking really confusing stuff here at the moment. I'm sorry. I will show you what I mean in a second. So let's do this. I will go over this like so. And I don't know if you can see that, but here the gesso is really, really thin. Yeah, there's nearly nothing, but you can see it that it is here. And if I now do it like this, I can still open this little pocket. Please make sure that you don't glue your pocket down with the gesso. Make sure that there's a little space when you let that dry. And with this tiny amount of gesso, I think there should be no problem to put something in here later. Because here there are no scraps and no thread and that stuff, so you could use those areas to put some gesso here as well. And as you can see, the ink is already coming up. Everything that you use that is gesso based will soak up the ink or other mediums like watercolor, for example, that are below. Yeah, so this gets a little bit stained here, but that is totally great because from that we can get some more interesting effects. Is this finished? I guess so. Okay, so we will put that aside to dry as well. And now I have something left over here. What can we do with that? I think we can find a place where we can put that. So I'm trying to grab some of the pages from the grungy journal. Holy cow. What about here? Here is relatively much ink, as you can see, and we could just take that and without scraps, without anything, just get rid of that by, I mean, rid of the knife. Get rid of the knife? No, definitely not. It's the knife from your grandma, Louise. I think you need a holiday. You definitely need a holiday. No. No. What is the word? You know, get rid of this to clean the knife and to don't waste that. You can just put it here and look how cool the ink comes up there. And when you now take the knife and it has some of those little like teeth, you can just go over that again. Here you can't see it so well, but it leaves a really nice texture here as well. Can you see that? It's not so extremely visible, but you can see it, I guess. I really like those things. I really, really like those things. Where do we want to put this? Not here. Oh, perhaps here. I don't like this picture. So let's just put this on here. And if something comes to the other page, don't care about that. We want to get rid of this and we don't want to waste it. That's the only sense why we are doing this here. Okay, so of course you could now take all of your pages that you want to create in this style with this mixed media technique, and do the same thing on all of those pages. First, put some scraps to the pages, and then add some white gesso, and you could do that for all of the pages where you want to have this mixed media style. But I would like to show you some different mediums in this video that you could use, meaning I will not use gesso again, but something different. But of course you could use gesso for all of your pages, or a good alternative for gesso would also be some acrylic paint. That would also, of course, work really, really well. I thought, when I have taken out this page, I thought it would be a good idea to take that, but now I think I don't want to cover up too much of this pattern from the embossing folder. So I'm thinking, let's perhaps do it here. And I'm just realizing, what the heck, why am I so confused today? We have to glue that down first, of course, before we can do anything else to this. And here, this shall become a belly band. Louise, concentration. This shall become a belly band. And this is the shape of a tag, as you can see. So I want to take this as an inspiration for a little, for a little detail, just a little hole, and this little guy here, so that this looks a little bit more interesting now. And then we are going to glue that down. I'm a little bit nervous at the moment because I will go on holiday in a few days, and this is one of the videos that you can watch while I'm not here. So this is one of the videos that I'm just preparing for you so that you have something to watch while I'm not here. And I'm a little bit nervous because I will see my friend Barbara at 49 Dragonflies again. Yay! And I'm so looking forward to see her, even if it's only a few days that we will be in Vienna, where she lives. And after that, we will travel to Rome again. And perhaps, if you know me, you can imagine that this is, you know, I really enjoy spending time with you, yeah, and I really enjoy recording videos. But to be totally honest, I want to sit in front of my computer with some books about Rome and get into this, you know, like travel feeling by researching some things and deciding for some perhaps new places to go and so on. And even if I really enjoy what I'm doing here, I'm totally nervous at the same time. So yeah, let's try to do this here. This, I think, this is enough. I think this is enough. Or, okay, so first I thought I want to put something here as well, but then I would close this cool pocket that we have here. That is a hard decision. So let's perhaps, how can we do that? Let's perhaps make something like an L as well here. That covers up not too much of the pattern, I would say, because I want to show you what happens when you use a stencil over an area which you have embossed with a folder. And yeah, I think for that I have to do this here. Otherwise I can't show it to you. Okay, so I think this is totally fine. Let's let this dry. And here we have to decide how we want to attach this pocket here, because this is like a paper bag, as you can see. And of course we can just glue that down to this paper to make sure that it can still open as wide as it is. But to be honest, I have absolutely no idea what will happen with this paper. This paper feels nearly like fabric. I guess it's some kind of handmade paper. Barbara has gifted this to me. But that doesn't matter. I think she also doesn't know what exactly it is. And I also want to sew this embossed pattern here to the paper bag. And because this is not wide enough, I will close a little bit of the paper bag anyway. So I think I will just take that to my sewing machine and just sew around here like this. I think I like that. So here we go. This is cool. I mean, this is now something like a double pocket, of course, because you could put something here behind the paper bag. That is a pocket, and here as well. Haha. Okay, so this is not dry yet, so I would suggest we are going to start with this one here. Oh, and of course we have a pocket here now as well, where we could tuck something behind or put something in. But in this case, I want to close this here on the right side a little bit, so that there will be left a little, like, yeah, small and slim pocket here, because now I want to use a stencil and texture paste over this embossed paper here. This is embossed with an embossing folder as well. This was made with the Mosaic embossing folder by Tim Holtz. This is also Tim Holtz embossing folder, but I just don't know the name. I think I've forgotten the name. And it's really important that you have some coffee in between when you do something like that. Okay, so let's start with my beautifully pink stained stencil. Don't use lumberjack plaid paint through a stencil and then put that into water and forget it there overnight. Yeah, the number of the stencil is THS 143. And I want to have some flowers here. I want to use this texture paste now, texture paste matte from Ranger. And this texture paste, it is completely opaque, meaning it's a gesso based texture paste and it's completely opaque. And that has several good, brings several good things with it, because yeah, you will see that in a second. Let me just try to get this here. So then we can lift this up and ta-da! So I will quickly put this stencil into some water so that this can't dry, and later on I will clean the rest off. But when you put that into water, it you know, dissolves a little bit, and then you can later on clean it really easily. And for this page from the Clean Journal, I've decided for this stencil. This is the number THS 158. And as you can see, this is not floral, this is not whimsical, it's just a really regular pattern. I've chosen that because we already have a really whimsical background with this here from the embossing folder. So I thought it could be good to have something more calm for this. So something like this. It's relatively regular, but it also fades out to the sides. And if this doesn't look cool, I can't help you. So interesting. I just love it. Wonderful. We're going to let this dry as well, and I will put this into some water. Let's go to the next pages. And here I want to do that with the scraps a little bit differently. That is also one of those reasons that I have talked about in my last video, why we have only attached those things with paper clips, and why I haven't glued them down yet, because you can also, of course, take some of your scraps. I'm just searching for something that is long but not so wild, like this, for example, and put that behind the pocket, like this. Yeah, that's the reason for the paper clips, that you still have the possibility to glue something down behind the pocket. I think this looks really interesting, and it's of course a good variation for such a journal. Okay, so when we have that, we can let the glue dry for a while, and here we have this situation. I have these papers here. I have just torn a page apart to create this and to be able to make a tuck spot out of this, because I've liked this layering here. And originally it was like this. You can see that here the stamping goes from this layer to the layer below. When I do it like this, I think you can see it a little bit better. And this is, of course, a really great chance to do the following thing. Decide for the width of this thing. I think, and this is the grungy journal, we can also go a little bit down with this layer to get a little variation, for example, like this. And now we can, let's first put some glue here to the middle so that this can't move anymore. And then we can take some scraps and put them in here to create a cool layering here. Look at that. How cool this yellow matches with the wild honey there. Absolutely gorgeous. I like that. Yeah, I think that is good. I will go to my sewing machine and just sew around here a little bit like crazy. Then it looks like this. And we can glue this down. And for those pages, I want to use some translucent mediums to show you another variation what you can do. And I have taken out different options. For the clean journal, I want to use the Texture Paste Translucent by Ranger. And for the clean journal, just fantastic. For the grungy journal, I also want to use something translucent, but for that I have taken out my grit pastes that I have. This is the normal grit paste translucent, and this is the grit paste Snowfall. So the look later is relatively similar, but this here has some tiny glittery elements in it. So I want to use this because this is just bam. But you could of course use also the normal grit paste. And we are going to use a stencil again. And in my eyes, the stenciling here gives us a really good starting point. And for me, this is just a really big inspiration, because the texture paste that we want to add here is going to become translucent when it's dry. So I thought, I mean, that means that we can see through it, yeah? So I thought we could use the same stencil that we've used for the background and place that here. Oh my goodness. I always have problems with finding the place of the stencil again. Okay, so now I have it. I've used it upside down. Holy crap. Now we can line that up here with the stenciling that we've made with the ink. And when you have this on your spatula, you will realize two things. The first thing is this is white, and it seems to be a little bit strange, but trust it, it will dry translucent. And you will also realize that this is way more liquid than the opaque texture paste by Ranger. So you want to make sure that you don't go over this with the spatula too often. Just try to get over that in 1 or 2 steps to be sure that your result gets really clear. And as you can guess, we are going to let this dry. Hey. For this page, for the grungy journal, I want to do something really similar. As I said, I want to use the grit paste Snowfall, and I want to use the same stencil that I have used for the background, like this. And then let's do a little triangle here, but I also want to have this not too regular. Then let's lift that up carefully, and then we have this, and I think you can not see it so well, but when it's dry it will become really gorgeous. I promise. This is, yeah, that's just cool. And a quick little note, and I have also done that with the page that I have just done with the translucent texture paste. Please make sure that you put something inside here while this is drying, because here we have the paste that goes over this and the page itself, and we don't want to glue that together with drying this or letting this dry. A good trick is to take something like such a brush, for example, and put that in here like this, so that this stays a little bit open and that it can't stick together when it dries. For the next 2 pages, I want to use some mediums that are going to crackle. And while I have prepared the pages, I have just sewn this on here and I've glued some scraps down. I've realized something that I have totally forgotten to mention. I said I'm going to let that dry, the things that we've done before, and this is what I will do here now as well, of course. And when I said that, I meant I'm going to let that air dry. You could use a heat gun to save some time and dry your pastes, but I can't recommend that for several different reasons. If you would use a heat gun, you could get the problem that the page doesn't stay nice and flat. It could happen that the page is like a wavy ocean in the end. Especially with the texture paste translucent and the texture paste matte, you would get the problem that the paste could get some bubbles when you put your heat gun too close to the paste, and that's nothing that you want to have. That looks really ugly. If you overheat those mediums, you can get some really ugly things to your page. The same with both of the grit pastes. Here I would say it's even more dangerous to get those bubbles when you heat that up with your heat gun or dry it with your heat gun. Yeah, you heat it up at the same time, of course. because of the fact that the grit paste has this gritty stuff in it. When that gets those bubbles and the bubbles go down later when they cool down, you get like a crater. It's really, really ugly. So I can't recommend to use a heat gun. And especially with both of the mediums that I want to use next, it's not a good idea to use a heat gun. Be patient, put that aside, wait. I like to dry my things overnight so that I can't get into this impatient mode. Do you know what I mean? And that there's no danger that I think, oh, heat gun. So I'm mainly doing those things in the evening so that I can do it, and then I will let it dry overnight. And the next morning I can look at it and I can be happy. So these mediums here that I want to use next are totally different. This is the Distress Collage medium Crazing, and this is the Texture Paste Opaque Crackle. All of the things that we've used before, meaning the grit pastes and they are rolling away. Oh no, come here. The grit pastes and those texture paste, you can compare with each other. Yeah, the grit pastes are comparable because they are gritty. They have the same stuff in them that makes this grit effect. The one is translucent, this one is translucent as well and has the glitter in it. There's also an opaque grit paste available, and you could put them next to each other to compare them. They are like sisters. Do you know what I mean? But with these, it's totally different. And I want to mention that I don't want to put them next to each other to compare them, but I want to use them in my clean journal and in my grungy journal to have something that crackles. And here I want to have something that is translucent. And here I want to have something that is opaque so that you later on can see the difference. And I think that this looks way nicer for a clean journal than this, because when we have finished this, it is really like grungy, yeah? And that's the reason why I'm using this here and this here, but you can't compare them medium-wise. Is that a word? I don't know. And this, what I want to use first, this Collage Medium Crazing, is also originally, I guess, not meant to use it like I'm using it here today. You can use this really good for altering photos, for example, and to get a really vintage and crackled look to photos. Amazing. If you have never tried this and you have some photos that you want to make a little bit more vintage, please try this. And this is, yeah, meant to put it to a surface, like a photo, for example, and get this old effect. I want to use it a little bit differently here because I want to show you that that is also, of course, a possibility. So I want to use this stencil here. I've chosen this because it has those like squares on it. And that is relatively regular. Here it's already really like whimsical. This is the clean journal, do you know? So I have chosen this. The number is THS042, and that is way too much. I'm applying this really thin, and that's the main point that you should have in mind when you want to use this through a stencil and in the way that I'm showing you here, because normally this is meant to, for example, put to your finger and put it to a photo, or of course for the photo you could also use a spatula as well, but it is meant to apply relatively thin. Otherwise it could happen that you will see no crackling in the end. If you apply this too thick, it can happen that the medium will not do what it shall do. Do you know what I mean? So now it looks like this. You nearly can't see it, I guess, but please wait. When this is dry, it's absolutely amazing. So I'm going to let this air dry as well. And here, what shall we do here? Shall we use a stencil as well, or shall we just put a tiny little bit of the crackle paste here? I think, these holes here look really interesting. So I'm thinking perhaps it would be a good idea to choose a stencil that has some holes as well. This is not round. I don't like that. What else do we have here? Ooh! I think I found one that could work. And here with this crackle paste, it is the same with the crazing medium, but with the crackle paste, yeah, it's also a little bit differently. How can I explain that? Oh no, I'm messing it up. I can feel that I will mess it up now. Holy crap. Oh no. Talking and doing this at the same time is not so easy. As you can see, that worked not so well. What I was trying to say is, with this crazing medium, it's the following thing. If you put it really thin to your project, you get really nice and fine crackles. If you put it way too thick to your project, then it can happen, as I said, that nothing happens and you get just a layer of a translucent, like plastic thing. Meaning, you have to have in mind that you don't put too much of this to your project. With this crackle paste, it's the following. If you put it very, very thin to your project, I mean, we can do that. Let's just do that to demonstrate that. I'm taking this with my finger. I'm just smearing this here and massaging that in here at the top of this page. Really, really, really thin. Yeah. And you will later on see that nothing will happen here. This will not crackle if it's so thin like this. If you would take the crazing medium and put it that thin to your project, you will get the most beautiful crackles in the whole world. Yeah. And that's the difference, or one of the differences. If you take a really good amount of the crackle paste and make it a little bit thicker, like I've done it here, can you see that is relatively thick? The crackles get really big. You will have really like, yeah, crackles that are big. How can I say that? If you apply that not so thick, you will get like finer crackles. They are then way more detailed, like they will probably get here. Can we demonstrate that as well, perhaps somewhere else? I will just take out a page where we can just smear the rest of this on. So perhaps here. So I'm going over this with a little bit of like, you know, control. And I'm trying to get that not too thick. This is not so thick as this here, but it is thicker than this. Do you know what I mean? So perhaps we can take this as an example to see the different things that you can get with this kind of crackle paste. I will also let this air dry. Woo! Magic! It's the next day and everything has dried. I want to show you the results, of course, how everything looks when it's totally dry. And I also want to give you some more inspiration, what you could do additionally to those pages with the different mediums, if you don't want to leave them like they are. But of course, you could leave everything that I show you now like it is now, yeah? So here, this is the result with the gesso. And here, you can't see such a big difference I mean, it looks nearly like it was yesterday, but now it's dry, of course. But I want to mention something that you want to have in mind, perhaps, when you do that with gesso. When this is completely dry and this layer is relatively thick, this gets stiff. Yeah, the page is not so flexible anymore, and some people don't like that in their journals when the pages are stiff. It can be helpful if you want to put a really sturdy, like, photo, for example, or one of those, how are those things from Tim Holtz called? Those chipboard ephemeras. Do you know those? Then it can be helpful to have something that is stiff to make this whole thing more harmonious when you touch it. But you have to have that in mind, that that can happen. Here on the grungy page, you can see what I've also already mentioned. The gesso has soaked up the oxide ink that we have below here. Here it's not so extremely, but you can see that the color has changed from white to another color. And that has not so much to do anymore with the color that we have underneath. Can you see this lightly like rosé pinkish tone in here? With the oxide inks and gesso, that happens relatively quickly and it's really uncontrollable. I want to show you this here. This is the page where we have put the gesso on just to don't waste it. And here you can see it's like orangey a little bit. And you have to have that in mind, of course, when you want to use those gesso-based mediums in combination with the inks below, that this can happen. But I really like this. I mean, that is so uncontrollable and it's so surprising. You can get the most coolest effects with that. This is just, you know, an example. It's not the best example for what can happen here. But what I'm trying to say is have that in mind, that the gesso-based mediums soak up the ink that is below here. I've decided to leave both of these pages exactly like they are. For the clean journal, the white gesso, of course, is really, really nice. It fits the theme of the journal really well. And here, I also like this extremely wide and big area here. But I also want to show you what you could do additionally, even if I will leave this specific page as it is. Perhaps you remember that we had put this coffee card into our color palette booklet in the very beginning of this series to remind ourselves that we want to use coffee in the grungy journal. Coffee is always great for grunge, of course. I like to use this kind of coffee. This is just this, like, you know, powder where you can put some hot water on top, and then it's like, yeah, a brown thing that shall be something similar like coffee. You know, it's not such a good coffee to drink, but for paper crafting and especially for grunge, this is of course really great. You could take this and mix it with the gesso and then apply it to your page, or you could of course also later on when the gesso is dry, mix this with water and then throw it on top. Also a really great effect. If you take the white gesso and mix it up with this and then apply it, you can get something like this. I have done this in the German video and yeah, here you can see a dried result. As I said, I've just mixed the coffee with the gesso and then applied it in exactly the same way like here. And then when this was dry, I've just spritzed some spray stain ground espresso to get this color variation here. And I think this is absolutely amazing. It's grunge, isn't it? So yeah, that is one variation. So let's go to the next paste that we've used, and that was this one, the Distress Texture Paste Matte. As you can see, it's white as well. If you look not so closely, you could think, oh, that is gesso as well, but you can see, no, you can feel that it's the Texture Paste Matte and not gesso when you do it like this. Can you see how flexible this is? This is absolutely fantastic. It's so flexible, so smooth. You nearly can't feel when you flip the page that there's this texture paste on top. Compared to the thing that we've made with the gesso, can you see that? If I would bend this as extremely as here, this would probably break. And that is the reason why I have put the gesso onto the other page and the texture paste here, just to show you the difference. Yeah, here nothing breaks. You can do what you want. It will not break and it will not fall off. Both are white. Yeah, the gesso and the texture paste matte are white, but yeah, you see the difference. And for the clean journal, here you could of course leave it as well as we have left the white gesso. It would look really great when it stays white. But you could also do some different things, of course, the same with the grungy journal. And I want to show you what you could additionally do. I really like to spritz things to my texture pastes and to those stenciled areas. And for the grungy journal, I want to use some Lost Shadow oxide spray to show you what can happen here if you use something like a spray. We have Lost Shadow in our color palette, so it makes totally sense to use this spray here now. And everything that is gesso based, of course, you can color with sprays, inks, and that stuff after it has dried. Or you could also, of course, mix some acrylic paint, for example, into the paste before you stencil. But I like to do that afterwards because I can now decide if I want to leave it white or if I want to color it in. And if I would have mixed the paste with some paint before stenciling, then everything would be the same color. Do you know what I mean? So here I can now say, okay, let's take this out. Let's just take the nozzle and put something here like this. And of course you could do that with any other color that you like as well. When we have that there, we can take just a little bit of water to be able to move this a little bit. This is not so extremely visible because Lost Shadow is such a light color. So I think let's perhaps also spritz a little bit here. But water is good so that it can run a little bit better. Like this. And perhaps we can also add some darker gray. Let's take some hickory smoke as well that we have on the color palette as well, so that you can see that in the camera a little bit better what happens here. Do it just like this. I think that is good so that you can see it really clearly. And now you can see the ink spray. When I move the paper, it runs in between of those little gaps of the stenciled pattern, and where I've spritzed directly to it, of course, it also stays on the paste itself. And I really like this variation. That looks really, really cool. So we are going to let that dry. And shall we do something here as well? I really like the contrast that we got here. That looks relatively clean, doesn't it? Here you can also see the texture paste has also soaked some of the ink that I've used to create this collage fodder here with the embossing folder. And it's a little bit like yellowish here. I like that. I really like that. But we could perhaps get a little bit more contrast here with some spray as well. And here I think I want to use Distress Spray Stain Ground Espresso. So this is not the oxide spray and way more intensive when we put this here. So I will spritz some water first to make sure that it that the ink spray can run really well. I'm pressing really carefully because this is really intensive. Let's perhaps let that flow into the bottom area. Ooh, there as well a little bit. Perhaps like this. Yeah, I think that's good. So we are going to let that dry. Then it looks like this on the clean page. And here on the grungy page, you can see one of the reasons why I love playing around with those mediums so much. Look how cool greenish the spray stain got here, and how cool that fits to the page, to the paper here in the background. Oh, ho, ho, ho. I mean, what the heck? That is just crazy, and it's so great. Yeah, so this is how it would look if you would apply some ink spray to the texture paste matte. And then let's talk about the translucent mediums that we've used. The texture paste translucent for the clean journal, and the grit paste Snowfall also translucent for the grungy journal. And here this is so crazy. Look at that. We can see the color of the stenciling that we've done before. Before we've added the paste through this. That gives it such a, like, you know, it's so smooth, and at the same time this glossiness, I think, matches the clean journal really well. This looks nearly like glass, like water, like, you know, it's so amazing. Here on the right side, on the page for the grungy journal, we've used the grit paste Snowfall, and I know that in the camera it's really hard to see this glitter. But perhaps when I hold it like this, can you see that? It's really, really crazy. You can also create really cool snow effects with that paste. That is not so important for the grungy journal here, but just for your information, look, isn't this just amazing? And here it's the same like on the other page. Look how cool this goes into each other. Here there's just the background with the ink, and here it goes into the area where the paste is, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. And it also reacts with the ink a little bit. As you can see here, the color changes, but that makes it so interesting. I mean, that is just cool. You could leave it like it is, and I will leave it for both of the pages like it is, because I just like the result. But you could, of course, also take a brush and go over the paste here with some ink to color that in. I don't do that here because I would destroy the whole look of this, of course. Yeah, because that's because we have made the background here with the negative impression of the stencil. I have created this background with the rest of the ink that I have had left on my stencil, and I've just pressed it to the paper, meaning I get the negative impression of the stencil. And the paste I've put through the stencil in the normal way, yeah, like you would do it, the positive impression of the stencil. And that means that the paste is now in those areas where nothing was before from the negative stenciling that we've done here. Do you know what I mean? So that gets one now. If I would color this with ink now, you wouldn't see the pattern in the end anymore. But of course, you could do that. I will show you a result that I got in my German video, so that you can see how that would look. But here I've taken my stencil, I've put the grit paste Snowfall through the stencil on this background where just my digital paper was and some scraps. And then I have taken a brush and some ink, and I've went over that to color that in. of course, that's something totally different. I hope you understand what I mean here. And it fits so well together at the same time that I nearly can't believe it. Yeah, okay. And even if you brush over this with ink, you can still see this glittery effect of the grit paste snowfall. So that doesn't get lost if you put ink on that. So that's that. And last but not least, we have the pages where we've used those mediums that crackle. Here on the left side, you can see the page from the clean journal where we've used the collage medium crazing. And here on the right, we have the page from the grungy journal with the texture paste opaque crackle. Let's first talk about this and especially what happened here. Look at this. Oh. Obviously, this paper doily here was a little bit too thin to handle the medium. As you can see, all of the edges here have crumbled a little bit. I don't like that so much. I think I will have to find a solution for that, because for the clean journal, this is, to be honest, not what I was looking for. But let's not talk about this crumbled doily. Let's talk about the amazing crackling that we got here with this medium. Look at that. You can already see it, especially here on the bottom right corner of the pocket. Can you see those gorgeous crackles? They look so cool. And especially with a stencil, I really, really like the effect that you can get there. I really like that. But if this is not enough for you, I mean, you could leave it, yeah, as it is. But if this is not enough for you, you can do something else additionally to what you have here. And that's also the thing that Tim Holtz is recommending with this medium. I'm going to use a crayon, in this case the Distress Crayon Picket Fence, that's white, because I want to bring out the crackles a little bit more. You could of course also use another color. I'm using white because this is the clean journal. And now I'm just going to scribble over this here. And I'm taking my finger and I'm going to smear this around a little bit to bring the crayon into those crackles. If you see something like this, can you see that here's way too much of the crayon? Then you can do the following thing. Just make your finger only a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit wet, and then go over that again so that you can smear the crayon around a little bit better. But I have to admit, I really like when this gets irregular, but of course that's not everyone's taste. And when you do that, it looks like this. So here you can compare it. I've just done it here in this area, and here it's like it was before, so that you can compare it directly. This is just so cool. It's so cool. And especially on this page, I like it because the pattern here now has also some white. We have this massive white area from the paper doily here, and now we have like a smooth thing here that is really harmonious with the white in the stenciling here as well. And here on the right side, we have this. This is the page where we've used the texture paste opaque crackle. And as you can see, with some papers, you have this problem. This book page is really thin, and this is the area where we've applied the crackle paste, like thinner than here, but thicker than here. And as you can see, the paper gets really like crumbled. For me, that is not a problem, especially not for the grungy journal, but perhaps you want to have that in mind. The thicker your paper is, the less problems you would get with this. The thinner your paper is, the yeah, the bigger the chance is that you can get some like crumbled paper. But even if you have something like this, as you can see, you can bend it a little bit, and if you don't like that, just take a thicker piece of paper and back this book page with that thicker paper, and you would have solved this problem. This looks really gorgeous. I like that. And as you can see, the crackles are relatively fine and really detailed. If you want to compare that with this area where we have applied it thicker, you can see a really big difference. And if you apply it too thin, like here, yeah, I've done that for the sake of the video, you can see no crackling. Too thin, yeah. Here we've applied it way too thin. Please have that in mind. There are some people who say to me, "Oh, Louise, I've bought this crackle paste and now I have applied it to my page and I can see no crackling." Yeah, that's probably because it was too thin, yeah. Here, of course, we can also add some additional mediums if we want. Do we want that? Oh, let's add some spray. Let's take the ground espresso spray again and some water and just look what happens here if we apply that here, because here we have the grungy side of the project. You could also use some crayon here as well and rub that over the crackling medium. But I think here I like this better, but I don't like that. So it's a few minutes later. It's not 100% dry, but I think you can imagine what I'm trying to say here. Okay, so I think nothing is left on my table here. I think I have shown you everything that we've done with the different mediums. And I'm really, really hoping that you could get some inspiration from this and that you want to try out some mixed media things in your journal as well. And I hope that I could give you some motivation to try that out, even if you thought before, "Ooh, mixed media is a really fancy and difficult thing." It isn't, as you could see. So I will clean my desk now, be happy about my results, and I hope we will see the next time. Have a great day. Bye bye.